Hey guys, thanks for tuning back into the channel. I think it's only fair that since yesterday we did the top 5 pre-spawn baits to use on grass lakes, that today we talk about my top 5 baits to use on more of the Highland reservoir rocky impoundments. It's really one of those things that if I'm going to any of those lakes, whether it's in the Ozarks like Table Rock, or it's over towards the Rocky Mountains like a Douglas Lake or a Cherokee Lake, if I'm going to any sort of impoundment that does not have grass, most of your pre-spawn fishing is going to be done around rock transitions, channel swings, that type of structure. I'm going to have these 5 baits tied on every time I go. It's funny how, like yesterday's set of baits, they were all grass baits. It's all about baits that can come through the grass well and trigger strikes. It's almost the complete opposite when you're talking about a Highland impoundment, a rocky-based lake. Yes, you're still trying to generate a lot of reaction strikes, but a lot of the fishing is going to be geared more towards the forage that you're fishing, so more shad based or crawdad based, because that's what you have in those impoundments. Not that you don't have those when you're fishing grass lakes either, but it's just it feels like it's a whole different set of baits. And for me, the 5 baits I talked about in my grass impoundment lakes are not 5 that I'm throwing in my rocky rock based reservoirs. So let's get right into it. So these 5 baits I will have tied on every time I go to one of these lakes during a pre-spawn period. Grand Lake, another great example of where these baits shine. And these are in no particular order. The first, a jerkbait. This is a Megabass 110. I like the Megabass. I like the Cutter. Berkley Cutter's a really good one. Yozuri's got a good one. Really just when it comes down to these types of lakes, you want to have a jerkbait tied on. For the most part, the majority of them have clear water, specifically down on the lower ends. For sure, you're going to have clear water if you're at like a Table Rock, a Beaver Lake. Really those lower parts of the impoundments for sure will have clear water in them. You do have, like on Grand Lake, a lot of times you'll get mud that flows all the way through that lake, but a jerkbait will shine in the majority of the time, anytime you're at one of those impoundments. It's a great bait for covering water. It's a great bait for keying in on suspended fish, and it's a great bait for keying in on the forage that those lakes have. So anytime I'm going to one of those lakes, I will have a jerkbait tied on. Next up, a relatively shallow running crankbait like this Frittside. This is a Berkley Frittside 7 that I've got. These baits are crucial at this time of year because you have a transition of fish that are going from the main lake into the backs of the creeks to spawn. And a lot of times they're following the creek channels. And with creek channel swings and creek channels, that's where you get a lot of your rock transitions, and that's where you should be throwing a crankbait. It's also where you should be throwing a jerkbait as well. But if you have conditions where the fish don't want to come up in the water column to hit a jerkbait, you got to get down to them, and that's where a crankbait shines. And that Frittside is a phenomenal crankbait. It doesn't have some crazy wide wobble. It's a very good early season crankbait. Those same areas, once you locate fish, that's when I pick up a jig. This is a Luke Clausen compact jig made by Dirty Jigs. One of my favorite all-around jigs to throw. It's a great bait to fish around rocks. It's got a line tie that is a flat line tie, so it's not parallel to the hook. It's perpendicular to the hook. and therefore when you're bringing it up over rocks, it does not get snagged very easily. And a rock or a jig is an excellent bait to throw anytime you're fishing around rock. You know, the two key areas for me to throw it is on those same rock transitions. If I've located fish with a jerk bait or a crankbait, I'm going to slow down with a jig and work those transitions. The other key is anytime you have a large isolated rock or a large boulder on a rock, you know, rock shoreline, those larger boulders will be pre-spawn fish attractors. And a great way to fish those isolated targets is a jig. You know, they can be a snaggy type environment where you want a weedless presentation. Pick up a jig, guys. Find any large isolated boulder or bluff ends and you can work a jig. I mean, I know there's a lot of lakes that have major tournaments where you see a jig play on like little bluff ends and little stair step rock, chunk rock type stuff in the pre-spawn period. The fish love a jig. It's a great bait. You got to have one tied on during that time of the year. If you run into a little bit dirtier water, you got to have a good dirty water spinnerbait. This is an angler asset spinnerbait, one of my favorite. They make a whole bunch of really good dirty water spinnerbaits with large Colorado blades. This one you can see has the front orange blade, a nice big gold blade in the back. Really high quality baits. Great for any time you have a good mud influx in those Highland impoundments. A spinnerbait is just a great way to draw strikes. You really want to fish it in the same areas you'd be fishing a relatively shallow running crankbait. Those creek channel swings, rock transition zones, great baits for spinnerbaits. They're great to have too if you have a lake that's got a lot of docks on it. They seem like they're really good fish catching baits around those docks and around the cables, and they're a little bit more weedless. So if you're on a body of water like a Grand Lake, or any of the Ozark lakes where you have a lot of that, you should have a spinnerbait tied up, especially if you have some off-colored water. The last bait to throw, and I don't know where it went here. Here it is. So this is just a small, my signature series dirty jig Matt Steffen guppy head with a small 3.3 power swimmer. Anytime you go to a Highland impoundment, so a rock-based impoundment, during the pre-spawn period, a swim bait is a great bait to throw. Most of those lakes will have good populations, spotted bass. Some have smallmouth, and you know this is probably the best pre-spawn bait that you can throw for either of those two species. You'll also catch some really good largemouth on it. It's more of a finesse tactic. If you've got your clear water, you want to have a small swim bait tied on. And the guppy head paired with like a power swimmer, absolutely phenomenal bait. I've talked about it in a lot of other videos, but I will probably have 2 or 3 of these tied on when I go to any of those types of bodies of water during the pre-spawn period. I'll just have a little bit different size bait, a little different size heads, and that way I don't have to switch because I know I'm going to throw this everywhere. It's a great bait to get bites. And you know, and a lot of the fish you catch are really big as well. So it's a great tournament bait, great guiding bait, just a great bait to catch fish. So yeah, guys, those are the 5 baits. Anytime I go to a Highland impoundment, so that's primarily rock, really no grass at all, I'm going to have one of those 5 baits tied on, or all 5 of those baits tied on. And, you know, from there, it's just a matter of figuring out, you know, are they active? Are they coming up in the water column to bite, where a jerk bait or a swim bait might be better? Or is it more of a high pressure time and the fish don't want to come off the bottom and you got to drag a jig or a crankbait? Or is it a muddy period and you got to beat them in the face with a big spinnerbait? So those are the baits, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've got other baits that you think you should have tied on, if you go to a Highland impoundment, please put that in the comment section so that everyone else can see it. Hit the like button if you have not done that already. and subscribe to the channel if you have not done that too. We're looking to grow, and every one of you guys that are watching the videos should be subscribed to the channel. We have so much good information coming out on a daily basis. So thanks for watching, guys. The last thing I'm going to point out, all of these baits you can purchase, or most of these baits or variations of these baits you can purchase at the website that's in my description. Use the code Stefan10, you get 10% off. So it's just a good way of saving a few bucks. Anyways, stay tuned. New videos coming out every day. Thanks for watching.